Welcome to the Parable Arrows podcast, where we wrestle with story to seek deeper truth. We believe that engaging with the art of the world can help us discern more of what God, as the true artist, is trying to reveal in the beauty of his story. Join us as we discuss movies, ideas, and practice engaging with art, God's word, our thoughts, and each other.
Hey, Archers, what's going on? My name is Josh. I am joined today on the podcast by our usual co-host, Femi. Femi, how are you today?
I'm doing well. I am feeling better. If you listen to our Pale Blue Eye episode, I luckily did not puke, but man, the last two of that 3-episode series, I was like holding on. So I'm feeling a little bit better. Still got some throat stuff, but we're doing okay.
Yeah, I could see it in your face, and when you were like, I'm going to just go check. And so I could still hear on the mic off in the corner, the like, oh gosh. Oh. So, dude, you were going through it. But yeah, so today we are moving on from the Pale Blue Eye, and we are talking about The Invention of Lying, which is a Ricky Gervais film. If you don't know who he is, famous comedian, pretty well known for being blunt and kind of pushing the envelope
Creator
a little bit.
of The Office UK.
Yep. Created The Office UK. So we're going to talk about this film, and we're going to use our Breakdown SMART, which we use on every episode, which stands for summary, message, audience, rethink, and a touch of the word, which we call theology. So I picked this movie because actually this is also a little mini plug. So I connected with a podcast via Instagram called Cinema Theology, and we ended up doing a video podcast remotely, so they're out of two different spots, but very similar heart to like what we're doing, encouraging people to think deeper about stories and stuff like that. And as we were talking, for some reason, I don't know if it got brought up in our discussion, but the movie The Invention of Lying, I think it was like in between getting set up and stuff, we were just kind of like talking about some films and things, and I remembered that this was a movie actually my family tried to watch when it first came out. Like, we rented it as a family, had it from Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, or whatever. And we got to a certain part in the movie, and we just like, I think I was actually the one who pulled the plug. I was just like, I just can't take this anymore. Like where the movie was going and what it was kind of suggesting, and I think, man, what year did this come out? Do you mind checking that for me while I'm finishing?
Like 11?
Was it 11?
It was like 2011.
Okay, yeah. So I would have been a junior or senior in high. I would have been a senior in high school. And so I just remember there's a certain point in this movie, which we'll talk about, that I just was like, I kind of see where they're going with this. I'm not really about it. Like, we're just gonna let's just call it. And everyone else is kind of feeling
2009.
Okay, 9. So
yeah,
I would have been a freshman then. So even as a freshman, I was kind of like, I see where you're going with this, Ricky. Like, I'm not on board. And so when I was talking about this with the Cinema Theology guys before we recorded, I remembered that story, and I was like, you know what? I want to go back and actually watch it all the way through, and kind of like now having a little bit of a different perspective, dive into a little bit of the themes, since we kind of have this platform to talk about some of the stuff that it is kind of getting at, specifically about religion, the idea of lying and where it comes from and stuff like that. So that is kind of the precursor. Had you seen this before, Femi?
I actually saw it in the theaters.
Oh, interesting.
And,
okay.
And I thought it was a really cool premise. I also missed part of the movie. I don't know if I fell asleep in the theater or something.
Sure.
But I did rewatch it later. And so I think that the idea of there had to be somebody who told the first lie, and how far would we get as a society without lying was interesting. It's just an idea. And so I was sort of like, I want to see where this goes, and how they sort of explore this. So yeah, it was interesting to get back into it.
Yeah. So with that, here's a high-level summary of the film. So there's going to be some spoilers in here, just as a heads up. So Mark Bellison, played by Ricky Gervais, is a failing screenwriter in a world where lying does not exist. His most recent date with a woman, Anna, has the waiter tell him to his face she's too pretty for him, and she says he doesn't look attractive enough and isn't successful enough for her. The next day, Mark is fired because his films, all historical, don't generate enough money. Feeling down, Mark, who is also about to be evicted, goes to the bank to close out his account to pay for some late rent. The bank teller informs him the computers are down, and Mark realizes he could just lie. He extracts the amount of money he actually needs for his rent versus what he says he has in his account, and everyone, including the teller, assumes he's telling the truth. From then on, Mark uses lies and various degrees of concern for his personal gain, including a new screenplay that rewrites history. It becomes a success, changing Mark's fortunes. He also starts to use lying to help others. Then he convinces Anna to go out with him again. She is again straightforward that even with changes, he's still not attractive enough. Mark then gets the news his mother is dying, and to comfort her from thinking she will fade to nothing, he makes up the idea of a man in the sky. It catches wind, and Mark becomes a thought leader, making up rules about the man in the sky and the good place after death. Anna and Mark connect, and she asks if her children will be attractive now that Mark is rich and famous. He doesn't lie, and Anna continues a relationship with the selfish Brad Kessler, who is a rival screenwriter to Mark Bellison. At their wedding, Mark objects to Anna and Brad, who eventually get married or are about to get married, and says that only the man in the sky can stop them. They request Mark to ask the man in the sky what they're supposed to do, and he refuses. Anna goes to meet him outside and he tells her the truth, and that their marriage wouldn't count if he had started it on a lie. Anna confesses that she loves Mark, and they're later seen starting a family with genetics in the lying game. All right. This is a very interesting movie to try and pick the message out of. So I will own right away, Femi, that I might be kind of processing in real time with you, because I felt like I had a message when I was watching it, and then things kept going, and I was like, I don't know if that's the message anymore. And so it feels like there's almost like a couple big swings that are taken in this movie.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to pin down, because we don't really have like a clear statement on, is lying good? Is it bad? Which, that's the nature of the film. But for you, what did you think was one of those core messages?
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically of Ricky Gervais, who is a prominent, outspoken atheist as well. The message of the movie seems to be that there are benefits to lies. Like, not all lies are selfish. And you see that in Mark's journey as he starts out being very, very selfish, and then realizes, I can use these lies to help people get over things that are keeping them stuck. And that those are, they have utility in the world. And the idea, though, at the end still seems to be that you cannot build an actual life on a lie. The ultimate truth is the world where we want to live. It's not the world where it's just safe or comfortable, or the world where I can be selfish. It's something in this sort of middle ground where I could lie to you, but I don't want to build a life on a lie, where he gets to sort of at the end. And so it seems like there is this... There are helpful lies for the flourishing society, but we want to live in a world where truth still reigns. It seems to be his and some of the other creators' messages with the movie. There is a very large jab at the existence of God in the movie, as this lie is helpful to placate the masses so everybody doesn't freak out about death. Death isn't really that bad to fade into nothing, but we got to make sure people don't freak out and they are grieving, and we got to figure this thing out. That seems to be secondary to the main message, but it seems like they wanted to make sure that was inserted in the movie as hey, everybody who's on the fence about God, just realize there is no scientific proof of this, that, and the third. As much as there are all these documents, people could just be lying to you. And they even have, I think, 10 good rules and
pizza boxes,
things you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yep. All these things you're not supposed to do. And so I think that's the ultimate message, is we want to live in a world with truth, and there are some helpful lies, and then there are lies that are selfish or to delude people that exist that we really don't need but we want to live in this world of truth. It seems to be the message of the movie from the way that it wraps up. How about you?
Yeah, I would agree with all of that and add in, I think one of the ways I was trying to figure out how to explain it was that there almost seems to be this suggestion that lies are like a neutral thing in a way, because they can either be a lie that leads to good, like we have Mark in the hallway talking to his neighbor who's suicidal throughout the movie. And, he says something that moment comes right after the point where he starts lying and like it kind of becoming a thing. And so as the audience, you're kind of starting to think like, wait a sec, is he just like lying about, when he says like, no, like don't do this, like I would care if you were gone, your brain almost goes like, oh, but he just started lying. Like he's not playing the game anymore. Like maybe that isn't true. And so there's like lies like that where in the movie, it seems to be kind of like, oh, this like quote unquote saved his life. This lie saved his life. But then there's other moments where the lies are very self-centered and Mark kind of is the sole reaper of benefit from the lies, whether it's like financial success, fame, stardom, stuff like that. So I felt like there was kind of this offer, this idea that it's like, what is really truth or a lie? It's more like how you frame it and see it. But then at that same time, suggesting that there's almost a slope of like power or danger with how those lies are used or with how things are said and used. So I'm still not 100% sure how to explain that as I don't feel like I'm being as clear as I would like to be, but yeah, it just was, I think, taking into account Ricky Gervais not being a theist at all and like being an atheist, trying to think of like, okay, how would he be approaching an idea of lies, which isn't really, like there's not really like a moral framework or something from that perspective. So
yeah, I think that's why it sort of wrapped up to, and I don't want to lie to you about how to start our life together, to know that the only way I would have been able to get you to be my willing partner is if I had lied to you, would have been building a life on this horrible, horrible foundation for me. And I would not be able to stomach it. I think the challenge in the movie is all of the decision making for the lying selfish? And I think that there has to be sort of some admission that yes, it is. Even keeping your neighbor alive is so you don't have to deal with the grief of your neighbor dying necessarily more than like you believe his life is more valuable as a person. Like I would miss you if you're on that line. Like that. Okay, that's about you then, right? Like it's not about whether or not I like you. You're supposed to be alive right now, and I hope you change or none of that. It was just I feel uncomfortable about this, or my mom is nervous and that makes me feel nervous. So I'm going to tell my mom this thing so I don't have to feel that bad about her feeling bad, and that is not really addressed in the movie. And sort of so that there are some lies that you can tell that help people and some that don't. But is it all about you or not is not really addressed either.
Yeah.
I don't think it's I don't think he tries to make it as gray as it ends up being, but if you examine why do you drive the car you drive, why do you live the house you live, the neighborhood you live, take the job you have, the money, like if you start answering all those questions honestly in this framework, it seems like all of it is about serving yourself, and your comfort level and what you're okay with versus a true valuing of human capability and life, and creativity. So like that's a little bit part of that too, that it can't really be addressed in the movie in the way that it's written. But I would love for our listeners to think through and talk about with each other of how do we as Christians say we do value life, and it's not just so we feel good about it.
Yep. Yeah.
We do value good work, and it's not just so we make money. Like what do we do about that? So
yeah. And I think something too that this movie did make me think about as well is like, where are our answers or our reactions coming from? Kind of to what you were saying about, like, am I reacting from my selfish point of view? I don't want to deal with the discomfort. I don't really want to feel sad or whatever. Or also, are we, like when I think of that line when he's talking to his neighbor, if I say something to someone who is struggling with the value of their life, am I saying it because I'm like, quote unquote, lying? Or am I saying it that because there's like a deep fundamental belief that I have that runs so deep that, like, sure, maybe I don't actually, quote unquote, like mean it from a certain, like, however you want to frame that, but I'm not lying about it. I'm not painting a deceptive statement of like, well, I don't really actually care about you. I'm just saying it to like make you feel good so that you don't like do something. It's like,
I think that's also a cognitive dissonance of most Christians with good things we believe, but we don't necessarily like. A really good example of that would be the way we shop or buy things compared to how generous we are. All Christians, like at a certain maturity level, would be like, generosity is a good thing. Being charitable and generous to other people is a good thing. But where does that really meet the rub? And when am I really saying like, well, I was going to give to this, missionary or to this cause, but I don't know if it's as efficient. It's like, oh, so you only give to efficient charities. You don't give because giving is good. You give because the output you want is good and you feel good about the output. And we have to wrestle with that cognitive dissonance of, I might not like somebody to be alive. There are many people who can come to mind worldwide that I would be like, man, the world might be better if they were gone. And then I have to put that up against what God says about it. And do I believe that?
Yeah.
And so I might not like something God says is true. I believe it to be true because of my worldview. And I have to then wrestle with, like, I want to do more things for me, but I have a family and I need to make sure I'm doing, like, those are things that we have to admit. Like, I don't like doing good things sometimes. Like the waiter sort of like rude to Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she's way out of your league. I don't even know what you're doing with her. We have to sort of do that to ourselves of, oh yeah, you're a really selfish person. You don't want to give. Like you don't want you don't care about that. Like, or you might think your pastor is an idiot for a month or something, like you have to admit that and go, is the person in that office still worthy of my respect? Yeah. Is the president somebody you still have to respect, even if you don't like anything they do? Yeah. Can somebody you not respect do something you like? Yeah. Like, that dissonance is the part of this lying thing of, I want to tell kids the truth. And sometimes the truth is like, you're doing something that's just annoying me. It's actually not a bad behavior. It's not anything wrong. Yeah. I am weak and I am annoyed by it. Would you please stop? And then if they say, I don't want to stop, and then I have to be like, oh, well, you don't deserve punishment. Like, I can't punish you for that. So I guess we just have to sort of be uncomfortable now. That's much harder than going, because I said so. Yeah. And stop it. Right. And so like that, the distance you're talking about of, do I really want this person to be alive? Do I really want Kim Jong-un to come to know Christ? Do I really want Vladimir Putin to come to know Christ? Do I really want Donald Trump to repent of some of the things that he needs to repent of? Do I want the Democratic Party to admit where they are wrong about like what's true about gender? And do I want the Republican Party to admit like that they have not been internally as critical as they need to be? Like, I want all these things to be true, but it's not. It's hard because like I also have to face that internally as well in myself.
Yeah,
and that's what makes the lying hard. Of I have to tell myself the reason like I'm not as healthy as I want to be is because I don't prioritize it. Like I like cinnamon rolls more than I like broccoli. Like I like, and I have to make decisions that deal with that humanity, which is like picking to fast more or to pray more or to humbly ask God for his direction in my life. Like that's part of the Christian experience.
Yeah.
That the movie does not address of, do you really want your neighbor to be alive, or you just don't want to deal with the discomfort of your neighbor not being there and like moping around you?
Yeah.
Do you, do you cut out your friends who are sad and depressed because they pull you down? Like, or do you cut out your friends who are sad and depressed because they're not listening to your advice and you're earnest attempts to help them, even though you would rather be doing something else. Gotta wrestle with that. And again, the movie doesn't touch on it, but we should realize that that's something we have to acknowledge in ourselves. We are sinful people. That's why we need Jesus.
Yep. Amen. Yeah. Well, and so to kind of transition into the point of agreement. So with this, I feel like there's a lot in this movie where we might look at and be like, yeah, like it's really interesting that we have Mark's character not wanting to start his relationship with Anna, no matter how long, like he's been pining after her the whole movie. And yet he doesn't want to manipulate her into a relationship, but he also will manipulate the masses to believe that there's a man in the sky and write out the 10 commandments on Pizza Hut pizza boxes. So for you, like, where did you find the most points of agreement or things that you were like, yeah, I actually think there are some good things that we're getting at here?
Yeah, the stories are, in a way, they're lies. Parables and parable arrows. Like parables and stories are in a way lies unless they actually happen. And there's no way to know like if Jesus' parables actually happen, but he told stories. And so stories are there. Is there an actual man who built his house on sand and an actual man who built his house on rock and rain came down? I don't know. Like, I don't think that Jesus, though anybody would say that he's a liar, I don't think he's telling the story to deceive. And so our line is about like, what are we deceiving for? Why are we deceiving? Or are we using something as an example? So I agree with the movie in sometimes it's helpful to tell somebody who is depressed or somebody who is in a state of confusion or feeling stuck a story to help them reframe their perspective in a way where they can make a decision and act in a way that's more helpful. And we should try to do that without lying and saying that, everything's going to be okay. Like,
yeah.
Like you have more decisions than here. Like you have, a couple more things you could choose. And here are some outcomes that could happen if you choose these things. And these might be better than where you currently are. So maybe you should choose these instead of feeling stuck. That might be better. Where disagreement is the deception of the masses and the delusion of people intentionally. Biblically, there are times where that's in the purpose of preserving a higher call. Like the one that pops into my head the most is the Hebrew midwives in Exodus. They just lied to Pharaoh. Pharaoh's like, kill these babies, kill these Hebrew baby boys. And they're like, the baby, they just come so quickly.
We turned around and there they were, and they were gone.
The baby's just there. Like, having been present at 3 different live births, like,
you sense
there's a lot of story. There's a lot of stuff, right? Or Rachel lying to Laban about being on her period so that he wasn't gonna attack them after she and Leah ran away with Jacob. So like, there's things like that I'm like, biblically, what's going on? Is it lying? Is it 100% all the time bad? It seems like it's morally wrong. Like you shouldn't intentionally deceive. And so when he's doing that in the movie where he almost sleeps with a woman, where he is telling everybody about these rules and just sort of making it up so obviously, I do think it is a device in the film, but it's also something where the reason you're doing that is not for people's benefit. Again, it's for you to live in a society where most people follow these rules. It's really, really easy to get down a slippery slope when you don't have a standard to go to say that, well, everybody should do this or everybody should do that. Like do more good than bad. That sounds easy, but what is good and what is bad when you don't have like a baseline? It's just whatever Mark thinks in the moment, Yeah. What if he's having a really bad day? So those are the things where it was really, really hard to like go, I disagree with you here. What about you with the areas you thought of agreement and disagreement?
I'm looking up a verse right now from trying to see if I can find it. I don't know if I'll be able to find it in time. But one of my favorite stories that I've studied in some of the classes I used to teach was in 2 Kings when the prophet Micaiah there's a king classic kings in the Old Testament, they want more stuff, more land. So they're going to go and attack some stuff. And so the king's like, hey, ask all the prophets, are things going to go well? And all the prophets like, oh yeah, it's going to go great. Go for it. And then they're like, oh, you're not asking one of them. Like, you should go ask him. And he's like, oh, that dude always has bad news for me. I don't want to hear from him. And so, but they go and they ask him. And he's like, oh, what? And basically the prophet Micaiah initially jokes. And he's like, oh, do the king's will. And he's like, no. I'm asking you what's going to happen. And then we have this really interesting scene where he's like, he describes God in the throne room surrounded by other angels, and God's like, this king needs to go down. How are we going to take him down? And one of the angels speaks up and says, I will be a lying voice in the mouth of his prophets, and they will convince him to like go do this thing. And so basically like God's will is carried out through deception that's done through, so like I think this idea of like agreement is like there's part of me where, I do think if we look at certain stories and even across history, like there's the really big ones. Like, do you tell the Gestapo that you have a Jewish neighbor, right? Like, no, because the government is trying to kill them and like that goes against God's law and stuff like that. But then I feel like there's those big ones where I feel like it's really easy to say, is that okay or not? But then you kind of like walk this gradient of deception and you kind of are like, oh shoot, like, but if that's okay, then like where else on this gradient does it fit? Like if the family pet dies, is it better to tell the kids the truth that like, hey, things don't live forever and the pet had to go away? Or like, the classic Hollywood story of like, oh, we sent her to the farm and she's, prancing, that's a lie. And so yeah, I felt kind of stuck of, like I couldn't pinpoint exactly where in this movie I like agreed or disagreed. I definitely align with you on this idea of like, if we go to scripture, there are key stories where deception has been used for a higher purpose and to almost like accomplish a good. But then there's a lot of other times where people lie. And, I think of like in Joshua, right? Like they ransack one of the cities and I think it's a husband and a wife, or some character gets some of the loot, and instead of them all giving it to God, they bury some of it to keep it for themselves. And then they lie about
Getting into our theology section.
Yeah, sorry. Head of the game. But yeah, so it's like, it's hard to say like, man, I really 100% fully agree with, this part of it. Cause I'm like, I don't really know. Like I'm personally struggling. I'm like, I don't really know like what this movie was saying in a certain way.
At the highest level, I think it's saying, hey, not all lies are bad. And I think that there we can go like, yes, not all lies are bad, but we have to be very, very careful as Christians of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get into that a little bit in our rethink of those as well. But if you are on a cliffhanger, wait for the next episode.
Dun, dun, dun.